The mastering EQ settings I'm about to show you are settings that I've learned and stolen from other mastering engineers that I've worked with over the past 30 years. I've put them all together in one FabFilter preset so that you can steal them from me. Now, before I explain all these EQ points, I've got a few caveats to cover off for all you keyboard warriors in the comments. These settings aren't the only ones you're ever going to need. Just think of them as a great starting point or a reference to go by. You'll not need all of these at the same time. You'll have to adjust them to taste as all songs are different, but they are an amazing place to start. Right, now we've covered that, let's get into it. So for all of these settings I'm going to show you, I'm going to use the FabFilter Pro Q3. First things, let's go from the bottom to the top and let me give you these settings. I like a 20 Hertz cut in the low end, around an 18 dB shelf. This is just taking away some of the energy where your compressor, if you've got a compressor after this, will then start compressing the mids more. And so you end up getting a kind of tighter sound in the mids by doing a low cut. So that's the first setting. Now, as I'm moving up, what I want to do is sometimes if I've got a kick and I really want to get some nice low end kick out, then I'll go between 50 and 60, normally 60 on a bell. So if I was putting some on, I might put say 1 dB on at 60, and then I will just move this around. So let me just play this track and then you'll see what I mean. So there you could hear what that was doing, and you could also hear what that low cut was doing as it's bringing it in. If I want to make the kick a little bit tighter, then around 160, I like to put a small cut in there. So I make a bell shape, and I don't ever really go over -1 because here you can really be losing some of the sort of lower mids, and this is where the power in a track and the feel comes from in a track, is the low mids. So I like to do this in dynamic mode so that I'm not taking it out all the time. I'm only taking it out when it needs to be taken out. So I just right clicked on that, and so as the track plays, then it's going to just drop down as it needs it. Yeah, so that's just coming in every now and again. Now, I said the energy and the feel is in the low end, so in the low mids. So I like to sometimes put in around sort of the 220, 240 mark. So if we put a dB in, say. This, I like to have it a little bit wider than that. So if I just click on that. This is really nice in combination with the minus, because you're kind of adding back in some of the stuff that you've lost in the low mids here. So if you can be lacking in the snare when you take away at 160, and you can take away from the low end of the vocals if you've got some in there. So adding this back in at 240 just adds a bit more of that. But this works on many tracks when you just want to sort of thicken out the sort of low mids and get some feel in there. Again, I quite like it in dynamic, but I'll just leave it like this at the moment. I'll go in and out so you can hear what's happening. The next setting I want to show you is you can add sometimes, again, thickening up the kind of lower mids, and you can sometimes add around 650. So let's just add that. And I tend to go a little wide here. The one thing I would say is when you're using this, it can start sounding a bit boxy. So this is to sort of thicken things out, again, like I just did down there. But just listen, and if it's sounding boxy, then obviously don't use it. But sometimes it can work really nice. So now when I want to just pop the vocal out, on this I want to do a high shelf, and I take this to about 1.7K and bring it up to about a dB. And why I'm doing this is because I'm going to change this now so that it's just in the mid. So all it's doing is affecting everything that's in the mid channel in the middle. And what this does is if you've got a vocal that's just sitting down a little bit, it can just pop the vocal out. But not only that, it just pops the snare out, pops everything up. So if you've got things sounding quite wide, it will give you a really nice presence. Now, I quite like adding sometimes, if I've got guitars and I've got some vocals and I just want to make them sort of sparkle a little bit more, I'll add around 5K, and I'll do this in the stereo. I won't do it in the mid only. So this is in the stereo, But what I would just suggest is making it dynamic. So then I'll bring that, so it's going, the maximum it's going is 1 dB there. And then I'll sort of have it smooth. I'll adjust the cue to ear as I'm going to see how bright it goes. So what you're listening to is the sort of the higher end of the vocal. Now what you've got to watch is that it doesn't sound tizzy, it doesn't sound essy, but if you can get away with it, it can add some real life to the track. So again, listen to the vocals, but this is really cool on guitars if you've got a guitar music that you're doing. So yeah, check this. Now, there's a nice little thing for adding a little bit of sparkle to the outsides, which I tend to do quite a lot. I'm bringing it up to 30k. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cue down so that it's only affecting the frequencies above 10k. So between 10k and 30k, obviously we can only hear up to 20, but it's because of the curve that we want. And this is a really sweet little air band. But the joy of this is when you just put it in the sides. It works really well in stereo, so try it in stereo. But if you have it in the sides, I do this quite a lot, and I also put it into dynamic mode. So I'll have a little bit on anyway, so I'll have, say, a dB on, and then I'll bring the dynamic mode right up. So it's got a little bit of space to move. Then as the track plays, it's only happening in the sides, but it's just adding a really nice bit of sparkle to the top end. And what that does, it just adds this sort of top, like, just niceness to it, and it sounds really posh. So listen to sort of the cymbals, all that stuff that's going on in the tops, and then you'll hear how this sounds. You'll obviously have to be listening in stereo. So you can hear that really lifts the tops, but it doesn't make it really bright. It just lifts the air up there and just makes it really nice at the top. So it adds a really nice sort of posh top, which obviously we're all after. You can download this FabFilter preset from the link in the description. And don't forget to watch this next video because it gives you all the best sidechaining pairs.